So if you're XYZ HVAC company, you want to be able to say, okay, my customers love working with me. Not only do they call me for the hot water heater or the heater or the whatever, but they also now trust me to do great work for them. They're going to call me if I need something else done, or they're going to refer me to another neighbor or friend because of the way I made them feel. That's so powerful.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a new friend of mine. We've met briefly here before the podcast, but excited to talk to him about really what he is working on, what he is passionate about, and the way that he is working to train organizations to bring love at the workplace, which is a very cool concept and something that here at Peterman Brothers we believe highly in. And are always looking to improve upon that. So excited to get his thoughts and learn a little bit more about what he's doing. But without further ado, would like to welcome the founder and chief growth officer of L.O.V.E Growth Ventures, Mr. Mark Mears. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, Chad, I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. As we both said, we're kind of getting over a little bit of sickness, so I'll be quick on the mute button if I've got to have a coughing attack. But no, excited to talk with you. Just really excited to learn a little bit more about what you're doing and kind of what you stand for, I think most importantly. I guess to get kicked off, maybe give listeners a little bit of your background. I know a couple of books and consulting and all of this stuff, but maybe just to kind of set the stage and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, I appreciate, Chad, the opportunity to speak with you today and your listeners and followers, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. My background is University of Kansas undergraduate in journalism and specifically on the strategic communications side, and then a graduate degree at Northwestern in integrated marketing communications, where I was fortunate to study at the feet of the master, Professor Don Schultz, who created integrated marketing communications. So I've had the good fortune of using that as a model for my career in marketing and executive management at places such as Pizza Hut when it was owned by PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, McDonald's, JCPenney, Universal Studios Hollywood, and the Cheesecake Factory, among others. And so I've had about a close to 40-year, career that led me down this path that years ago I got an epiphany. And it started with this first book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution, 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. And I thought, well, that's going to be my legacy. That's going to be my way of what I call paying it backward, taking what I've learned, my experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as observations of those who I admire, and a curation of research and subject matter experts and thought leaders that can go deeper in certain areas than I can go. And I created this book that was going to serve as the foundation for keynote speeches and consulting opportunities. And 4 months after it was published, and I'm happy to say it received bestseller status, I got another epiphany. And it was about this time 3 years ago, and I was working on my LinkedIn newsletter for that February timeframe, and I was thinking I want to make it relevant to the season of love, Valentine's Day, right? And so I scribbled on a piece of paper, just wrote down love, and in that moment, Chad, I got this epiphany that love is the answer. And I wrote down after the L, listen. I wrote down after the O, observe. I wrote down after the V, value. And I wrote down after the E, empower. And I got to thinking, these are 4 fundamental human needs, not wants, but needs that we all share, but often don't find in the workplace. And we all need to feel seen and heard. We all need to feel valued for who we are as a whole person, not just as a worker or an employee, or God forbid, an FTE. And then if we really want to be cooking with gas, we want to feel like we're empowered to grow into our full potential. So in this world of quiet quitting, or now with the mental health crisis, quiet cracking, and now with the way the job, situation, employment situation is shifted more to the side of the employers versus the teammates, there's now job hugging. But the common denominator among all those is that people are lacking engagement. We're at historic low levels of engagement, according to Gallup's State of the Global Workplace report. They're saying close to $9 trillion globally it's lost due to lack of engagement. And that's about 9% of GDP, right? And so great, big, flashy number on a global stage. But look at our own companies and look at how we're seeing, turnover. We're seeing people leaving traditional workplaces for, jobs such as working with you, right? Tradesmen and women, right? We're seeing the gig economy exploding where people are basically saying we're mad as hell, we're not going to take it anymore. So the Sloan School of Management at MIT did a massive global survey about a year or so after COVID hit, as we heard the term at that time, the Great Resignation. And then they asked a simple question: you left the workforce, why? The number one answer, Chad, over 10x more than the second most given answer, was toxic work environment. As I mentioned, as people, were screaming out their window, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. When the world returns back to normal, whatever normal is, I don't want to go back to that same toxic environment that I tolerated. Life's too short, whether, we got sick ourselves, whether we had a family member hospitalized, or God forbid, someone we know passed away due to COVID. I guess it gave us a bit of a time out to reflect deeply on not only what, but who matters most in our life. So I wrote this newsletter on love, and it got a ton of engagement. Wow, Mark, this is exactly timely and relevant, what we need right now. And so I kind of put it off because I'm promoting my first book, right? A year goes by. The next February, now armed with more research, I'm more emboldened to say I'm doubling down. And I wrote an update and got even more engagement. And people are like, man, Mark, this should be a book. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm one and done. I've done my book. This is just, another avenue to express what my, first book's really about as well. And it took until that next fall and into the January that I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And so I did a LinkedIn newsletter a year ago in January, and I declared that 2025 was going to be the official year of love. And I'm working on this book, and I got it published last fall. And again, I'm happy to report that it hit bestseller status. So now here we are in 2026, and I've changed it a bit. 2025 was the official year of love, and look what all happened in 2025, right? From geopolitical issues to right here in our own backyard, to divisions among, not only people at work, but family members, right? And the only thing that I believe, Chad, that can bring us together is love. So I wrote this book, and it's really, it can work among all relationships. But as someone who's been a leader in the C-suite for over 20 years, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've had wonderful mentors who've walked alongside me and taught me how leadership really should look and feel. And I've had some that were stinkers and that were truly bosses. And so I was able to filter out what I liked, what I didn't like, and, what seems to be responding well with my teammates. And I created the L.O.V.E. leadership model. So I appreciate you allowing me to come on today and talk more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that we're very aligned in the, I may not say love in the workplace, but, the engagement piece is hugely critical in what we do. We're in a business where there's more people exiting the trades than are entering the trades. However, you saying love on a podcast where most of the listeners are tradespeople may not play great right now. So I believe it, but I want to get others to believe it too. too. What's kind of the biggest misconception when this idea is brought to the workplace? Like, where do you see people having this misconception about when they hear love in the workplace?
Yeah, and that's an easy one, Chad. I mean, the number one thing is, oh, don't bring that weak, soft crap in here. We're not a bunch of namby-pamby, seal-loving, tree-hugging, people. We're hardworking, 9 to 5ers. We're busting our ass, and we're in a blue-collar type of thing. And it's like, yes, yes, and yes. But guess what? One thing I do know, and I don't know much, Chad, but one thing I know is all of us as human beings need to feel loved. We all need to feel seen and heard. We all need to feel valued for, again, who we are as a whole person, not just as a tradesman. And we all need to feel that we are able to be empowered to grow into whatever we want to do. And I've heard wonderful stories from the home services industry where people come in as apprentices, work their way up, and ultimately take on a whole business and are able to provide for not only their families, but other families. So this idea of empowering people works, again, whether you're in the trades, whether you're in, corporate America, in the high-rise somewhere, whether you're an entrepreneur and you're just starting out. And it really works well in sales, as I found out. And so, yeah, it's not soft. It's not namby-pamby, airy-fairy cotton candy, stuff. It's real, it's tangible, and it gets real results. At the end of the day, isn't that what we're all looking for? Whereas a teammate, we're wanting to provide for our families. We're wanting to grow in our profession. We're wanting to work with someone, not for someone. And I like to say that based on all the research, people today don't want to be managed and required. They want to be led and inspired. And if they are, they're going to give you more discretionary effort. They're going to be engaged on a deeper level. They're going to do higher quality work, be more productive, stay longer, and ultimately that means more profitable. As I've learned, tenured teams are the more profitable teams, and it just makes sense. They figured out how to get through the bumps and bruises and ultimately get to be a well-oiled machine that is much more profitable than newbies who are trying to figure things out and making mistakes along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where we deal with it a lot. And I constantly say we're not about putting in furnaces, water heaters, and electrical panels. We're about people. And we are in the people service business. And that is what we deliver. And that is what we have to develop. And that is what we have to make better. And it's hard, right? It would be much easier just to say, let's just go sell more furnaces and the company will grow. Unfortunately, we need people to sell those furnaces, work on those furnaces, install those furnaces, do all the things related to the furnace, along with all the other stuff we do. And so I guess if I'm a leader and I'm sitting there and I realize, okay, maybe I'm kind of blinded by the actual work and I haven't been bringing this love into the workplace. I don't really know where to start. I feel like that's the biggest thing when I talk to, business owners. It's like, well, what do I do? Like, what's this look like? Like, what would be like a couple of like easy wins that any leader could do to start bringing this culture into their business?
Yeah, in the book, I talk about a leader being real, being authentic, being transparent, creating a safe, psychologically safe in work environment, right? Those are the kind of things that are really, important. And so again, vulnerability is not a weakness; it's a strength, right? Being able to go to your teammates and say, "Hey, look, I'm kind of struggling here, and I need your help. Here's what I'm thinking, but I need your reaction." And so listening is the first L in the L.O.V.E. leadership model, right? In listening actively, with understanding, with empathy, and then also responding in the appropriate manner. So often when we think we're listening, we're really kind of in our mind thinking about how we're going to respond to what they're saying instead of really soaking it in and asking for help. So the leadership model, a L.O.V.E. leadership model, has a so what after each one. You want to listen graciously to build trust. Trust is the foundation for any relationship. You want to observe in a way that is generous because it isn't easy. You got to give up your time to observe somebody and make them feel invested in. And then valuing the whole person to where they walk away feeling truly appreciated, for who they are, what they do, and the role that they play on the team, and then empowering them to grow into their full potential. I would just start with listening and saying, this is what I want to accomplish. I know I've got some work to do. I've created a self-assessment tool on my website at markamears.com, and you can take it. It's about 5-6 minutes long, and it assesses a teammate as to how well they feel loved at work. So we have a diagnostic tool to create a gap analysis, whereas the leader would take it and say, here's how I perceive I'm coming across in each of these ways. You then juxtapose that against the teammate who is saying, well, here's what I'm experiencing. That starts a conversation. This is not a gotcha. This is about, I want to be better. I want to be the best leader I could be. I want to grow my company, and I want to give opportunity to my teammates. And words matter, Chad. Notice I didn't say employees. I didn't say workers. I said teammates. Because I believe that when someone sees themselves as a teammate, not just as a team member may be someone who's just playing their role and staying in their lane. That's good. A teammate does that and adds value to the other teammates to help lift them up, make them better, use their experience, their expertise, instead of just hoarding it for themselves. So if you come in with that idea of, hey, we want this to be the best company it can be, right? Everyone's going to agree. We want this to be the best workplace it can be for all of us, right? Everyone's going to agree. Well, we've been given a model to use, and I want to try it out, but I want to make sure that I'm listening to you all first. So I'm getting that feedback so I know a benchmark of where are we starting from. Have I unwittingly created a toxic work environment and I don't know it? And I'm just saying, well, tough it up, buttercup. This is the way it is. You don't like it, you can go down the street. And if that's the way you are as a leader, you're not going to ultimately be successful, right? But if you maybe feel like you have tendencies in that area and you want to get better, it's time. Now is the time. Again, people of a certain age, we didn't have options that that are available today to younger people. We had to toughen up, buttercup. We had to salute and execute. It was very hierarchical, very, staid environment where it was top-down monologue versus two-way interactive dialogue. Well, today, that's not what young people want. And if you want to help, attract and grow younger people, they're not going to put up with that. There's other options for them out there. So I'd start with the idea of listening. And I'd start with the idea of being vulnerable to say, hey, I haven't got this all figured out. I need your help. How can you help me be better to make your work experience the best it can be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. I've always said, the communication and culture within your business, I always say culture is consistency. So how consistently are we having these conversations? Because if it's just every once in a while, dialogue cannot happen because everybody's kind of on their heels as to like, oh my God, why am I meeting with my manager? And so, one of the things that was super simple for us is we are really focused on one-on-one interactions. Our field pros are out in their truck by themselves, 90% of the time, doing, all of the things. And it's like managers, we have to be able to sit down with these people and understand, what things that they need help with, where are they struggling, what things are they doing good with? Let's praise them for all the great things and offer our assistance if there's things that they're struggling with, because ultimately we get better as a company when they get better. So we have to spend the time with people or they're never going to develop. Yeah. And so I think that's been one of the biggest pushes for us. And, I think it's getting a leader over that hump of like, well, what's a 20-minute conversation actually going to do for the results? And it's like, well, one 20-minute conversation is not going to do a whole lot, but consistent 20-minute conversations over an extended period of time are going to start to get results because you're going to foster that relationship where you are inspiring them. They know you're there to help. You're no longer their manager. You're their, as you say, their teammate. I'm helping you. We want to get things done together. And when you win, we all win. And we can serve more customers. One of the questions I have for you, so I feel like one of the big focuses for us in 26 is accountability. I think that we got too far over on the empowerment pendulum without checking in and holding people accountable. How do you see kind of, I mean, accountability has like the most negative connotation in the face of history. Like, oh my God, someone's going to hold me accountable. How do you kind of see that, bringing love into the workplace and then marrying that with accountability?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because so often when people hear this on a surface level, they're thinking, we're just going to let the inmates have the keys, and that's not right. That's not at all. It's a two-way street. So what I use is what I call the mirror test, right? So you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, as a teammate, what can I do to make my work environment better? What can I do to be better? What can I do to be accountable for the role that I play on the team, right? And so you're hearing a lot about the hybrid workplace as a result of COVID. Now there's people that are working remotely, and they want more of that kind of level of freedom and autonomy, right? That's fine. I'm a big believer, we hear often and people write books about time management. I believe there's such a thing as energy management. And it's like, when you're at your, when your brain is most fertile or when you're at your best, your peak during the times and days. Some people are morning people, some people are evening people, whatever. I know you don't get to do that in the trades business. You have a schedule during the day. So it's a little bit different. But if you're the leader of that group, you understand that I have to hold myself accountable as the leader. And so that I can make sure that I foster an environment where my teammates have the most fertile ground to grow into their full potential. But it is most definitely a two-way street. And I think so often, and you use the word pendulum, so often we go ditch to ditch, and it's you're red or you're blue or you're this and you're that and you're this. And there's a lot of shades of gray in there. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a two-way street. You got to be able to look at someone across the table, but look at yourself in the mirror as well.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful comment in that, I feel like a lot of the times we're sitting there judging the other side or the next generation and all of the things that they don't do that we think they should do. And what I always tell them is I'm like, hey, every generation before you is complaining about you and you're complaining about the next one. Why don't we figure out a way that we can meet people in the middle where, there are more than one way to do things. So we don't always have to do it the old way. And to your point earlier, if we're going to attract people, if we're going to get them engaged, we've got to meet them where they are. What would be your advice for people who really struggle with that? Because I know that is a thing, especially in our industry, where it's like, hey, I'm the 30-year plumber. This is the way we do it. And we work hard and we don't make excuses and all of this stuff. And yet you've got a young plumber trying to learn the craft. And he's like, I'm not really subscribing to that. Like, what would be your advice to, someone on the team or maybe the leader themselves on kind of how to manage that kind of, being vulnerable, I guess, is the biggest thing about it.
Well, I think it's more than being vulnerable. It is that, but it's being open to change. Because so often we get stuck, it's called a comfort zone for a reason. There was a woman named Gina Milishik who wrote a line that I love. It says, a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. So what I love about your podcast and business and, Can't Stop the Growth is the idea that to grow, you've got to change. You've got to be open to change, not only your mind to think differently, but your heart to feel differently. And you mentioned earlier that, you're in the people business, and I agree with that. But I'll take it one step further to say, if you want to be successful in the people business, you have to be in the feelings business. And it was the late, great American poet laureate, Maya Angelou, who said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So the idea of with any conversation you have is like, how do I want that person to feel at the end of this, right? So to your question about change, and I've been doing this a certain way, and this is the way things are done. I was taught this way. It worked for me, and you're going to do it my way or the highway. Okay. Well, good luck with that. It's just different today, and use the exact right phrase. You got to meet people where they are, not where you hope they would be, not where you were, but where they are, and bring them along the journey, because your techniques may be 100% spot on, but there's a different way to communicate that versus just that's the way things have always been. And we're always in a mindset of, if I had to do it, you have to do it, this way. It's just paying your dues. Young people today have a different mentality. I've got two 28-year-old daughters, both of them smarter than me, but just have a very different view of, or expectation, I should say, of what work means to them. Well, we all still need to get the work done. So what are we going to do? Wring our hands over it? Or are we going to say, okay, the ground has shifted a bit under our feet. It's different than how I grew up in the business. But now here's my new reality, and what am I going to do to change my mind, my heart, my hands, and my habits to create an environment where people love working with me, not for me, but with me. And within this organization, to where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So if you're XYZ HVAC company, you want to be able to say, okay, my customers love working with me. Not only do they call me for the hot water heater or the heater or the whatever, but they also now trust me to do great work for them. They're going to call me if I need something else done, or they're going to refer me to another neighbor or friend because of the way I made them feel. That's so powerful if you think of it in the way of we're in the feelings business versus just the people business or just the HVAC business.
I like that. Yeah, the feelings business, I think it to me, when I think about that, it falls right in line with meeting people where they are. You're never going to make someone feel good or feel like they're empowered or feel like they're a part of the group if we don't meet them where they are. One of the things I've found with, this generation, call them 20 to 30-year-olds, which is the bulk of our, staff is young people getting into the trades, is showing them a path. They want to know what the path is. Whereas before, it was find a company, put in your time, I'll see you in 30 years with my, tie or, gold pin or whatever it is. They want to see a path. And, I'm not, shy about, hey, if you want to be here, if you want to make these dollars, here's what you need to do. Here's the steps, here's the skills, here's everything. We did a project 2 years ago. We call it Paths to Progression. And it's for all of our field pros. And they have basically a chart that basically says you are here. Here's the skills competency wise that you need to know in order to move up to this level. Here's the KPIs that you need to hit. When you do that, you can earn more money. We went away from this whole concept of annual reviews and does my manager like me and are they going to give me 50 cents or $1 or whatever it is. We're like, no, we'll give raises. You got to be in kind of the role for 6 months, but I'll give you a raise every 6 months. If you do these things, you can continue to move up and you can make more money. So it's in your hands. And I think to me, like the empowerment piece that is so critical with this generation is giving them the keys to go create their own path. Whereas before, you may not have needed to do that. I think today that is how you connect with these people, is giving them a path.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I remember as a young buck coming up in the marketing ranks and within PepsiCo, if you got invited to a meeting, you were told basically, don't say a dang word, shut up, soak it in, listen, learn. And then today, young people want to be part of the conversation. Even though they don't have the years of experience, they still want to feel like their voice matters. And that's fine, right? Because you never know where an idea can come from. It could come out of the mouth of a babe, right? You just never know. And so it's changing the dynamics of how leaders need to lead differently today. It's the way I break it down, Chad. Think of it as kind of a 4-circle Venn diagram. You start off as a teammate where it's very functional. I need a job, right? And if you do well, often you get raises or you get promoted, and now you're a manager. People now report to you. Well, you did really well because you were a good doer. All of a sudden, now you got to manage. And so that could be transactional because oftentimes we're taught how to manage timelines and budgets and reporting and, but how to manage a human being. And that's difficult. That's a difficult skill. But those who master it become leaders. Leaders now have that same person saying, hey, if you're a manager or a boss, worse yet, I must obey you. You're a higher, square on an org chart and your title's higher than mine. But if you're a leader, they will say willingly, I will follow you. And you could stop there and that'd be great. But if you truly want to be a legacy builder, someone who creates a ripple effect, that same teammate will say, not only will I follow you, Chad, I will lead like you, if not better, when it's my turn to lead. So now imagine the multiple ripple effects that can change and transform this command and control management style that no longer serves us into a more relational, purposeful, humanistic leadership approach that will benefit all stakeholders, our teammates, our customers, our business partners, and the communities we serve. Isn't that a much more noble pursuit than just getting another 50 cents an hour? Being part of that broader ecosystem where you're actually making your communities better. And that's really where purpose comes in. My purpose is I got to, make a living to pay the rent or the mortgage or the, whatever bills, right? Got it. But younger people today also, they want to feel like they're working somewhere that allows them to feel they're part of something bigger than themselves. And that's where purpose comes in. So you're not just installing a hot water heater, you're helping some family have hot water so that they can live their best life, right? You can look at everything you're doing in the trades as helping someone live a better life. And there's value in that. There's satisfaction in that. There's people that you may never come into contact again, but because of what you did that day, you made their lives better. And to me, that's kind of cool. And I love when you talk about the pros, and in my mind, I'm always thinking of, well, what could that stand for? Pro, but maybe it's, professionalism. We got to be professional in everything we do. Maybe it's relationships matter for the R. Or maybe O is own the outcome. I just made that up, but it's something that you could instill in people. And you use the word culture, and it's fine. But I believe a culture may be a place someone feels merely a part of. I believe in the word community. It's a place someone feels they truly belong. You notice the difference? When you feel like you belong, all of a sudden now you're psychologically safe enough to bring up ideas, and you're able to, do your best work without fear of recrimination or judgment. Isn't that what we want to create as leaders, is communities of belonging versus merely perpetuating cultures of conforming?
Yeah. Wow. There is a lot there, which I am excited that you said it, because it has been, our marketing team late last year decided they were going to read a book together. And I think they asked me for a recommendation. I said, hey, why don't you read The Infinite Game by Cynic? I think it could be hugely beneficial to what we're trying to create. And for the longest time, we were first growing the company, our marketing efforts, our messaging out to the mass public was, this coupon, this discount, this so on and so forth. That's the easy button. But it doesn't create two things. One, it doesn't create customer trust. And two, it doesn't create the culture within inside these walls that we want to have. And so they took on this project. They did a fantastic job. But the kind of overarching kind of like mission statement is service with significance. And in the book, Cynic talks about your just cause. And to you, what you were talking about, what's the purpose? Why are we going out in the blistering cold, the blistering heat? Why are we doing this? And we came up with this just cause of creating a place where trades professionals can grow without limits. And as a result, our communities are stronger because of it. And that is what we are trying to wrap this entire organization around, is this purpose of, if we continue to grow and can provide the service at an exceptional level, we are not just installing equipment. We are literally taking care of people and their families. And as I always say, the world would not be a fun place to live in if your AC and furnace did not work, your indoor plumbing did not work, and your lights didn't turn on. We are important. And I think for so long, the trades have been degraded, and, you're just working with your hands and this, that, and the other. And I think we're starting to see this turn. And I'm like, let's ride this wave with society who's pushing people into the trades and all of this. Like, let's be about it. Let's be kind of the lighthouse of like, hey, yes, this company believes in this and this is what we're about. And my thought was, hey, it needs to resonate with our people the most, and in turn will resonate with our customers, because personally, I would want to do business with someone who believes in that, as opposed to just the guy offering the discount and I can get something for cheaper and this, that, and the other. Like, I want something bigger. And I think that's what you're getting at with this whole feeling of legacy. And to me, that is the biggest piece. Like, what are you as a business leader working for? Like, is it more money? Because that's not going to solve your problems. It's not going to make you feel any different. But leaving a legacy is something that we all can be proud of, and something that I think if you really want your business to grow and make an impact, that is what you have to be focused on.
Yeah, I love you brought up the word legacy. For me, it's so important. I'm very fortunate to have built a nearly 40-year career working for some of the companies I mentioned. And I could have just retired and rode off into the sunset. But I felt this calling to pay it backward. And I say pay it backward. People say, well, Mark, isn't the phrase pay it forward? And I say no, because I believe, again, words matter. And I like to take things and twist them and turn them and look at them instead of just taking face level or surface level words and just running, like lemmings off a cliff with them. Which is why I like teammate versus even team member or an employee. I like community versus culture. I like leader versus boss. And on and on. But the idea of legacy is this idea of paying it backward, because it hit me one day when I'm a growth junkie. And I love that you have the name of your podcast, and Can't Stop the Growth. I love growth in all of its forms: personal, professional, relational, and spiritual. But I'm also a coffee junkie. And so I go to Starbucks through a drive-through, and I've made this a thing. And I'm committed to it. This idea of consistency that you mentioned earlier is that I will pay for the car behind me. So I get up to the window, and I don't know them. They don't know me. But I got to believe in that moment, they feel like someone values them. Somebody sees them. And I'll ask the barista in the window, hey, can I pay for the car behind me? Oh, that's so nice. And I'll say, but could you do me one favor? And they go, well, sure. Just say, God bless you, your debt has been paid, when you give them their coffee. And so not only did that person receive a cup of coffee or whatever they bought that day, but they received a blessing. And I drive away and I say a silent prayer for them. Again, I don't know them. They don't know me, but I pray that they'll be blessed in some way that day. The ripple effect, the legacy of that one, not random act of kindness, but intentional act of kindness. The barista pops up and says, wow, that's really cool what you just did. The person in the car goes, wow, or people in the car, as it is often the case, that just happened. And then there is something called the law of reciprocity that basically says when someone does something nice for you, you feel a deep-seated urge to do something nice for somebody else, and oftentimes in greater measure. So I'm told that again, intentional act of kindness creates a ripple effect where that person feels led to pay for the car behind them, and the car behind them, and the car behind them. And I'm told that happens. So that's the idea of legacy, is don't wait. People get the word legacy misconstrued, and they think of it as, well, just something you bequeath of value to someone after you're dead and buried. No, I prescribe the idea of a living legacy. One thing I also know, Chad, and I don't know much, but I think there's two things I said that I do know. And one of them is regardless of our gender, race, creed, color, political affiliation, religious affiliation or not, the one thing I know is each of us has 24 hours in a given day. Not one of us has a minute more or a minute less. We have agency. We have control over how we use that time. And if we're intentional about paying it backward to help others along their growth journey, now you're creating a living legacy where it will have a ripple effect that can create a tsunami of value and worth that's more than any dollar figure you can put on your business.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. When I hear you say living legacy, it's like, how do you create an environment, a community, a culture that inspires everyone to live out that living legacy? Like, what does that company look like? And what things start to be getting done that, you don't have to be managing people. You don't have to be, browbeating them about all the mistakes they've made, because everybody is truly aligned in this mission of whatever it is that your mission is within your company. I think that's so powerful. I write to my kids every morning. They're 7 and 4. So one day they'll get to see it, but I've written to them ever since they've been born. It every morning when I open up that notebook, it's thinking about, what are the lessons that I can impart on them. And it's so funny you mentioned the one about we all have the same amount of time in the day, yet some people have done unbelievable things with their time. And I wrote to my kids about this literally 2 days ago, about, hey, everybody has the same amount of time. What are you using yours for today? And I think that's so powerful when we think about, what is it that we're truly here to do? Yes, there is business. We spend a lot of our times here. But I always think about kind of this, work-life purpose. Like, I need to be doing the same things at work that I want to do in my free time. And hopefully that's making an impact on whoever it is that I come in contact with.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then that, discipline of writing to your kids, that's a gift, man. That's an amazing gift. And what a great idea for other listeners out there. You mentioned work-life purpose, which I think is great. And oftentimes we hear of work-life balance, and I'm here to tell you, after almost 40 years of grinding in corporate America, I've never found balance, and it's a myth that we have been sold for so many years. But I think again today, not only young people, but all of us really should shift that paradigm. Instead of it being, work-life balance, flip it on its head and be life, work, purpose. So putting life in front of work's not a bad thing. I mean, at the end of the day, no one, it's the relationships we make. It's that is the glue that will bind us together, are those we love and those who love us. Everything else is paying bills, right? But if you work with a firm that allows you to grow into your purpose, that is really where you're like, hey, instead of, again, 24 hours in a day, think about it in a third. We sleep about a third, some more, some less. We work about a third, and we live about a third. Well, what if you could take all the time that you're awake and feel more purposeful, so that the 8 or 9 or 10 hours or whatever you're working that day feels purposeful, and not just wait for after work or the weekends to quote live, but live while you're working in a way that's purposeful, that makes you feel great. When you're riding home at the end of the day, I used to look at my rear view mirror and I self-assess. How did I do today? Did I do everything I could do to move the business forward today? And oftentimes I could. And some days when I said, oh, I wasn't really on today, or I made a mistake in a meeting and said something insensitive, or I left people feeling maybe less valued than they deserved to be. And I resolved that the next day I was going to be better. I think that's what I mean by a living legacy, and changing that paradigm, that myth of, work-life balance to life, work, purpose.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's I've never looked at it that way, but I'm excited to look at it that way from now on. And I'm going to what you came up with on the spot for me, the Field Pro. piece is something that I'm going to definitely use, because that has been a push for us. Our COO came in and he was like, why do we call them techs? Like, that just seems, I don't like it. What about field professional? And like, it's been, what's it's in, it's been a tech has been in my vocabulary for quite a few years, with 13 years. So I'm untraining myself.
Yes.
But I love the concept of what you said of, pro could stand for something.
Yeah.
And what does that stand for, and who are you out there in the home? I think that is so powerful. I'm excited to share that with the team. I sent out a Monday morning email to the entire company, and I think that is going to be the topic of that, which I'm really excited to share.
Well,
So
I gave you 3 words that came off the top of my head, but what could be a cool exercise, Chad, is you allow your team to fill in those words.
Yeah,
and
I
so
like
it
that as
doesn't
well.
come down from on high. It says, hey, we need everybody to buy into this. And when you have, even if they don't take your idea, but if you feel like you were heard, it develops a sense of ownership. Like, I was part of this decision. And then you can create your own diagnostic tool to say, how are we doing about, our professionalism? Assuming that's the one you stay with. How are we doing about creating relationships versus sales? How are we doing about owning outcomes? Or whatever they end up being. And then you can, say, hey, once a quarter we'll do a survey and we'll rate ourselves, and we'll come together and say, how could we do better in each of those 3 areas? Right. Yeah. So you make it bubble up from your teammates instead of coming down from, on high. It would be my suggestion. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah. No, it's great. That's how we came up with our core values.
Yeah.
Is we asked around, what are ours, and then let's condense them down to what we're going to operate off of. Mark, I cannot thank you enough for the time. I know you're busy, and this was an unbelievable conversation. I think I've got quite a few notes here. I'm sure listeners will as well. I think this is an episode that people need to listen to, and then, as you said, the kind of exercise of the mirror. We need to look in the mirror and see how we're doing, because I think this is a prime episode for how do we grow as a leader to grow our team. Not just, hey, what are the business tidbits? What are the ideas that I can put in place and then they'll work? No, it's how do we work on ourselves? Because as one of our core values is lead ourselves.
Yes.
We have to be continuously growing, continuously getting better, or it's going to be really hard to expect that out of our team. So really appreciate the time. Mark, is there any place, like, where can people go to find your book? Where can they go to find more about you and what you're doing and all of that stuff? Where's the best place to go?
No, I appreciate that. And again, the book is called Love at Work. We're creating communities of purpose and belonging for revolutionary growth in a new world of work. And you can get it on Amazon. It's available in the ebook if that's your flavor, or a paperback, or even some like hardcovers. I'll be recording an audiobook, but it's not ready yet. My website is markmears, MEARS.com. But really, hit me up on LinkedIn. Follow me, I'll follow you. Let's get connected, because I want to learn from you. I don't have all the answers, but as someone who's a growth junkie, I have a voracious appetite for learning and growing myself. And so I would love to connect with you and see how I can possibly be of service to you in helping you not be able to stop the growth, but keep that growth going steadily every quarter, every year, where you're creating a legacy, a living legacy for your teammates to not only follow, but lead like you, if not better, when it's their turn to lead.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Mark. Listeners, definitely reach out and connect. I'm sure there's a lot of, a lot more useful information that we can use to build those stronger communities within our own businesses. Thanks again, Mark.
My pleasure, Chad. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with me personally, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel and consider joining the CSTG Arena. As always, keep growing out there.